They say hindsight is 20/20. In my case, hindsight comes with a migraine, a bottle of Jack, and the realization that I might actually be the punchline to some cosmic joke. My name is Andrew Holloway. Once upon a time, not long ago, I was the guy with the manicured lawn, the two-story colonial in Westchester, the shiny Tesla in the driveway, and a wife who smelled like Chanel and contempt. I had 2 teenage kids who barely acknowledged my existence unless their iPhones broke or their Venmo balances dipped below $100. And let's not forget my best friend / business partner / future homewrecker, Mitch, the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back just so he could remind you for the next 10 years that he gave you the shirt off his back. I ran a successful logistics software company. Keyword, ran. Past tense. We sold optimization systems to trucking companies and distribution centers. Not exactly sexy, but it paid for the espresso machine my wife never learned to use and the private school my daughter hated. I was bored out of my goddamn mind. Then came the investment capital T, capital I don't even remember how I stumbled into it. Maybe I was drunk. Maybe I was high on boredom and misplaced ambition. All I know is some overconfident crypto bro in a Patagonia vest told me I could double my net worth in under a year with next-gen AI-integrated decentralized data farming. Honestly, I still don't know what that means, but I nodded like I did, because that's what smart, decisive men do when they're trying to convince themselves they aren't terrified. So I did it. I sold the company. I liquidated everything that wasn't nailed down. Stocks, bonds, retirement funds. I even pulled equity out of the house. Every last cent went into what was essentially a digital mirage with a cool logo and a lot of buzzwords. And then shockingly it tanked. No slow burn, no polite decline. Just boom, gone. Like a magician's trick, only the rabbit died and the hat was on fire. I remember the morning I told my wife. Her name's Candace, but I always just called her Hey, because even after 15 years of marriage, she still responded better to that than honey. She was stirring her almond milk into some keto nonsense when I walked in, still wearing last night's clothes, and shame. I lost it, I said, like I was talking about a wallet or a set of keys. All of it. The money, the investment, the company's gone. She didn't say anything at first, just stared into her mug like it held the answers. Then she looked at me, finally really looked at me, and her face did this thing where it collapsed into itself, like disappointment had a physical form. You're joking? Nope. Silence. Then, you're a goddamn idiot. And that was the nicest thing she said to me all month. By noon, the kids knew. They took it surprisingly well, if by well you mean they acted like I'd killed their dog and burned their Air Jordans. My daughter, Chloe, started crying. My son Ryan just said, "So, are we poor now?" And when I said yes, he nodded, stood up and said, "Lame," before walking out of the room. By dinner time, Candace had already called her mother, her therapist, and, unbeknownst to me at the time, Mitch. Within a week, she was gone. Took the kids, the dog, and about 70% of what was left in the house. She left me the espresso machine, though. You know, just in case I wanted to look at a $2,000 reminder that some things are designed to be beautiful and completely useless. Like our marriage, Mitch showed up 2 days later with that faux concern look people get when they're not sure if they're supposed to say, "I'm sorry," or "I told you so." "Man, I don't even know what to say," he muttered, stepping over an empty pizza box and looking around like poverty might be contagious. "I mean, this whole crypto thing. Jesus, Drew." "Yes, sir," I said, pouring whiskey into a chipped coffee mug. "Jesus had nothing to do with it." We talked for a bit. Or rather, he talked. I listened. About how I needed to rebuild. How maybe I should consider consulting or doing something small until I get back on my feet. He offered to front me some money, which I declined, because I still had a shred of pride left. A shred. Like the last leaf clinging to a dead tree in winter. Then he left, and I never saw him again. Not until much later, when I found out Candace had moved in with him, and they were, in her words, exploring something real. Apparently, betrayal is real. You know what's not real? A support system, a family, friends, all those people who came to our summer barbecues, who toasted champagne at our New Year's parties, who posted on Facebook about how we were couple goals. Yeah, ghosted. I became invisible faster than my investment account. And you know what the kicker is? The house wasn't even in my name. Candace's parents had helped us buy it years ago, and for tax reasons, it was under her name. So when the bills piled up and I couldn't pay the mortgage, the bank didn't call me. They called her, and she sold it. For a loss, probably. But enough to get a nice condo with ocean views and a new mattress to screw Mitch on. So I did what any rational, broken 39-year-old man would do. I disappeared. At first I crashed on a friend's couch, then another. But couches have expiration dates. Eventually, I ended up in a homeless shelter in Brooklyn, sharing space with a guy named Reggie, who claimed he used to be an Olympic gymnast, and another guy who definitely wasn't an Olympic anything, but could quote entire episodes of Law and Order by heart. Life on the street has a way of stripping away your last delusions, like the one where you think people give a damn about your college degree, or your previous tax bracket. Or that time Forbes did a mini profile on your visionary leadership. None of that matters when you smell like stale piss, and the only thing in your pocket is a gum wrapper and a receipt from 2016. I learned things, like how to spot which shelters actually have edible food, which Starbucks let you linger the longest without buying anything, how to layer clothing to keep your toes from going numb in the dead of January. And I learned that rock bottom isn't a place. It's a feeling. It's the moment you walk past your own kid on the street and he doesn't recognize you. Or worse, he does and pretends he doesn't. That happened with Ryan. He was with his friends. They laughed at me. I get it. I probably would have laughed too. Funny how poetic justice always feels like a punch to the throat. But here's the thing about rock bottom. Once you've been humiliated, degraded, devalued and dismissed, there's not much left to lose. And once that fear is gone, you're free, which is when I started to plot my comeback. There's something liberating about being irrelevant. No expectations, no fake smiles, no one waiting for you to say something smart in a boardroom. When you're the guy with a beard made of shame and a smell that makes raccoons run, no one bothers you. You become background noise. Wallpaper in human form. But I wasn't dead yet, and that annoyed me more than it should have. I started working again. Not the glamorous, look at me in my corner office with my $600 shoes kind of working. No, I scrubbed toilets at a downtown gym for minimum wage and cold silence, the kind of silence where no one says good morning or goodbye. Just mops, sweat, and the occasional bloodstain. You'd be surprised how often men bleed at the gym. Testosterone and kettlebells don't mix. My first paycheck was $183.46. I held it in my hands like it was some kind of sacred scroll, a relic from a life I thought I'd lost forever. I took that money and bought 3 things: a prepaid flip phone, a bus pass, and one of those terrible vending machine sandwiches that tasted like rubber and shame. It was a celebration, but I didn't stop there. That flip phone, my Trojan horse. See, while I scrubbed showers and pretended not to hear guys grunting too loud, I listened to conversations, investment tips, business deals. One guy, Jason, liked to talk on speakerphone in the locker room like it was his personal office. I don't know what kind of sociopath does that, but I thank him every day. Jason worked in venture capital. Loudly, obnoxiously, and like most men who thought they were smarter than everyone else, he never noticed the janitor behind him wiping down lockers and memorizing company names and fund allocations. So I started researching. Public Wi-Fi became my new best friend. I'd sit in libraries, pretending to read while deep diving into startups, angel investors, blockchain trends. I rebuilt my brain the same way I used to rebuild servers. Painfully, obsessively, and with a lot of swearing. Then I got lucky, actually. No, scratch that. I created luck. One night, around 2 a.m., I found this obscure subforum buried in a tech site. Some guy named Dirtbite was talking about building a decentralized freelance platform that used smart contracts to cut out middlemen in creative industries. Everyone mocked him, said it would never work. Too complicated, too utopian. I emailed him from a borrowed library computer, said I liked his idea, said I had experience in logistics and software, said I was between gigs. Translation: homeless and reeking of dollar store deodorant. To my surprise, he responded. Turns out Dirtbite was a 19-year-old coding savant from Milwaukee living in his mom's basement. He didn't care that I didn't have an address. He cared that I had vision and spreadsheets. I still knew how to build a pitch deck that could charm the venom out of a snake. We started working together. Long hours, sleepless nights. I lived off vending machines and public restroom paper towels. He coded, I strategized, we built a prototype, then a website, then a roadmap, all while I still cleaned gym toilets. Funny, isn't it? The guy picking pubic hairs out of shower drains was designing a platform to disrupt billion-dollar industries. Life is nothing if not poetic. I called the platform Freelance Chain. Catchy, right? Sounds like freedom and money. Had a baby. We launched 6 months later, quietly. No press, no splash, just a whisper in the endless noise of the internet. But whispers spread. Our user base grew. First 100, then 1,000, then 10,000. Designers, copywriters, translators, coders, people sick of being underpaid and overpromised. People like me. We weren't just building a company, we were building a rebellion. And then came the email. A venture fund in San Francisco, one I recognized from Jason's sweaty locker room calls, wanted to discuss potential seed funding. I laughed so hard, I scared a homeless guy sleeping 2 feet away from me. I still had blood on my knuckles from unclogging a toilet. I walked into that Zoom meeting like a ghost who'd come back for his life. They saw my face, heard my pitch, looked at the usage data and wrote a check for $1.2 million. That was the day I left the gym job. I remember walking out with my mop like it was a victory flag. The manager asked if I was quitting. I said, "No, I'm just ascending." He blinked. I never looked back. The next year was a blur: growth, meetings, money, a second round of funding, then a third. I took a cutthroat approach. We didn't just grow, we devoured the competition. I bought out 2 rivals. I poached their developers. I sold one of their apps back to them just to prove I could. I didn't rent a flashy office in Manhattan or some pretentious loft in Soho, no. I stayed in a modest 1-bedroom near Queens and funneled everything into expansion. I became rich again, richer than before. And this time, I wasn't stupid enough to let anyone know how much. But the money wasn't the point. The money was a tool, a weapon, because I hadn't forgotten. Not Candace, not Mitch, not the friends who ghosted me like I was some failed sitcom character. I kept tabs on all of them, quietly, through social media, public records, gossip. Candace and Mitch had moved to Connecticut, bought a house with a pool. He'd started his own company, copying mine, of course, because originality was never his strong suit. Trust Chain. Even the name reeked of second-hand ambition. The best part, it was bleeding money. He'd overextended, tried to scale too fast, didn't understand user retention. I almost pitied him, almost. So I made a call to an investor. New, a vulture with perfect teeth and a Harvard ego. I tipped him off, told him about this promising new startup run by a guy who didn't know the difference between UX and UI. Told him to sink a few million into it. He did. Then I watched Mitch hire too many, spend too much, and drown in operational debt. Few months later, I made my move. Quiet, strategic, brutal. I bought his company's debt, through a shell corp, naturally. Then I called in the note. He panicked, tried to refinance, couldn't. The vultures circled. One by one, the investors bailed. When the company finally collapsed, I made sure the story hit TechCrunch with my quote attached. Unfortunately, not everyone is cut out for leadership, but I wish him the best, personally and professionally. Petty? Absolutely. Satisfying beyond? And Candace? Oh, she was livid. Because in the bankruptcy filings, she discovered something. The house in Mitch's name, alone, and it was used as collateral. Oops, they lost it. The house, the pool, the new car, all of it. They moved into an apartment in Bridgeport. She went, back to teaching yoga classes to women who hated their husbands. The cherry on top, I ran into her one day. Pure accident, or fate. Who knows? She was working the counter at a Whole Foods. I almost didn't recognize her. No makeup, cheap nails, hair pulled into a sad ponytail that screamed, "I've seen things." She saw me. Her eyes widened. "Andrew?" I smiled. The kind of smile you practice in mirrors when no one's watching. "Hey." Silence, just like in our kitchen that day. But this time I had the upper hand, and she knew it. "You look good," she said, trying to sound casual. "I feel great," I said. "You?" Pause. "Getting by? Must be tough, losing everything." Her jaw clenched. I leaned in, lowered my voice. "Don't worry. You're used to it." Then I walked away, and for the first time in years, I felt whole again. You know what's funny? When you're rich again, no one really asks how. They just nod like you always had it in you. Like your rise was inevitable, ordained by fate and spreadsheets. They don't know about the rats, or the cold, or the time I tried to sell my watch and the pawn shop guy laughed so hard he gave me $5 out of pity. No, they just want to be near the warmth of your fire, pretending they didn't watch you freeze. I was invited to speak at a tech conference in LA last spring. One of those smug, overpriced ego parades with buzzwords and vegan hors d'oeuvres. A decade ago, I would have killed for that platform. Now, I only accepted because of the guest list. Guess who was there? Mitch, in a borrowed suit, talking about lessons learned and resilience. He looked like a cracked iPhone screen, pretending to work. Candace wasn't with him, probably couldn't afford the hotel minibar. I waited until after his talk, then approached him backstage. He froze. I smiled. Hell of a panel. Really inspiring. You almost had me rooting for you. He tried to laugh. "Hey man, long time." Not long enough. There was a beat. He shifted, glanced around like someone might rescue him from the conversation. "How's the startup graveyard treating you?" I asked. His smile faded. "Look, Andrew, I know things got messy." Messy? I tilted my head. "You mean when you slept with my wife, hijacked my life, and then fumbled it like a toddler with a grenade?" He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "It's fine, really. I'm not here to rehash it." He looked relieved. "Foolish man," I leaned in. "I just wanted to say thank you." He blinked. "For what?" "For being exactly who I thought you were." Then I turned and walked away. Power doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't need fireworks or applause. It just is. And I was done wasting my breath on people who mistook silence for weakness. But the real revenge? That took a little more time and patience and, well, money. Let me explain. After Freelance Chain exploded, I made some quiet investments, strategic ones. I started a holding company, something discreet, faceless, cold. Through that, I acquired 3 small logistics firms, 1 content marketing agency, and a digital payment processor that Mitch's new company relied on for invoicing. Oh yeah, Mitch had started another venture, SteadyFlow, a productivity app for freelancers that was basically a glorified to-do list with pastel colors and motivational quotes. It was bleeding user engagement and hemorrhaging capital, but he kept pushing it like a man trying to revive a dead horse with TED Talks. I watched him build it, quietly, patiently, like a hunter in the trees. He needed Series A funding. Badly. So I reached out to his biggest potential investor, not as Andrew. No, that would have been too obvious. I used a contact from Silicon Valley, an investor I once helped through a PR disaster involving ketamine and a drone. He owed me. I called in the favor. At the pitch meeting, Mitch walked in, confident. He didn't recognize the board member in the back row, the one who asked the most pointed questions, the one who looked unimpressed. That man, my plant, the investor, rejected the pitch, politely, then pulled out 2 weeks later from another fund Mitch was counting on. Dominoes, click, click, click. Meanwhile, I had my people start a similar app. Just close enough in branding to cause confusion, but with better features, smarter UX, and actual value. We released it for free. Mitch lost 60% of his user base in a month. I waited until his company was dangling by a financial thread. Then made my final move. My holding company offered to acquire Steadyflow for pennies on the dollar, just enough to cover their debts. I made sure the offer came with one clause. Mitch could not retain any executive role, ever. He took the deal. Desperate people don't read fine print. They sign it with hope and trembling hands. I met him in person to finalize the acquisition. He looked like hell. Like a balloon someone had slowly let the air out of over 5 years. Gone was the cocky smile. Gone was the swagger. "You win," he said. I sipped my espresso. "It wasn't a game." He nodded. I didn't think it would end like this." "Neither did I admitted. I pictured fire, explosions, maybe a fistfight in the rain. We sat in silence. "You hate me," he said. "No," I replied. "I studied you, that's different." He left. I never saw him again. But Candace, Candace. She came back. They always do. It started with an email, just, "Hi." Then another, longer, remorseful, carefully worded like a resume cover letter, dipped in regret. She said Mitch had changed, that the glamour wore off quickly, that she realized how deeply she had misjudged the situation. She asked to meet, just to talk. Closure. So I agreed. We met at a cafe I'd once taken her to when we were dating, back when life was soft around the edges, and she hadn't yet killed me from the inside out. She wore makeup, lipstick I recognized. She smiled like the past didn't exist, like we were still 27 and invincible. "I've missed you," she said. I stirred my coffee. "I haven't thought about you in years." It was cruel, but true. She flinched. "I just thought maybe, now that things are different." I set down my spoon. "Candace, you didn't love me. You loved the version of me that looked good. At dinner parties. And when that version broke, you left." Tears welled up. I didn't blink. "I'm not angry," I added. "Anger takes energy. You don't deserve that." She tried to save face, said I had changed, said maybe I was bitter. I smiled. "No, I just got tired of apologizing for being broken while others danced on the cracks." She left. I paid the bill. That was the last time I saw her. Now I live in a penthouse in Brooklyn, not because I need to, but because I like the view. It reminds me how high you can climb when there's no one left to carry. Freelance Chain is global now. I don't run it day to day. I have people for that. I consult. I travel. I write emails with too many commas and no emotional labor, but some nights I walk to the edge of my terrace and stare down at the city that nearly killed me. I think about the man I was, the man they left behind. He's still there somewhere, beneath the suits and the security codes, under the money and the scars. The man who once believed people loved him unconditionally. Now I know better. Love, like business, has terms, clauses, hidden fees, and me, I've learned to read the fine print and write my own.